Are sleepovers for children bad all of a sudden? I am 30 and I grew up with going to sleepovers at friends' houses or having them come over to mine. When I got married, I was randomly talking to my wife, who already has a son, about one of the sleepovers that I went to as a kid at my friend's for a birthday party. She spent a little bit of time saying she doesn't like sleepovers and she doesn't allow her son to go on them or had them. She told me she doesn't trust people with her son that isn't her or some family members. Sleepovers were such a normal thing when I was a kid, and even now on TikTok a lot of moms are saying my children would never have them or go to them. Did something happen recently to change the concept of a sleepover? I understand not wanting to trust some random stranger with your kid. But are parents not talking to each other anymore? When I was a kid, if I wanted to sleep over at a friend's house and my parents didn't already know them, they would just call them. Or we would all meet up somewhere and hang out together beforehand. Like me and my friend and our moms would all go out to lunch, and my mom would decide based on that interaction whether or not this seemed like a person who could keep me alive for 24 hours. My daughter has her pals overnight, and I just hide to spare her from the embarrassment of my hideous appearance. I specifically recall back in the 80s my parents wanting me to host sleepovers, but only wanted me to go to sleepovers with either several kids, like a birthday party, or someone they knew well, like my cousin or my friends from church. So I guess not trusting someone else with your kids is not new. She told me she doesn't trust people with her son that isn't her or some family members. And yet, trusted family members are statistically the #1 most likely perpetrator of sexual abuse. Every one of my sleepovers as a kid, this was 90s and early 2000s, for the most part was us dying laughing when we should be sleeping and us getting in trouble for laughing. I'd be really depressed if I missed out on all those days and nights. There is a difference depending on a child's age. I was not allowed to go to a sleepover in elementary school but was allowed in middle and high school. Some people feel cautious about them because they were victims of sexual abuse in childhood, not necessarily at a sleepover, but they feel extra cautious and protective of their children being away. I work with trauma patients, and it is very common for those parents to be extremely cautious about leaving their kids with any one sitter, family, other families, etc. This isn't a new thing, but it may be in the media more now for whatever reason. Damn. That sucks. I loved sleepovers. My friends and I would stay up playing whatever game system we had, eat a bunch of junk, and cause mischief. I still remember when my best friend I froze all of his little brother's underwear. The best part was that his mom didn't even notice the big brick until she went to put the ice tray back. We did save 2 pair, so we weren't complete jerks. Man. Sleepovers introduced me to Super Mario 64, GoldenEye, Body Harvest, and Independence Day. It'll never be the 90s again. That's for sure. I had a best friend of 15 years. Me, her spouse and my spouse all hung out. Game nights, camping dinners, you name it. Our friendship ended when I found her beating the crap out of a 4-year-old in her care. CPS and police were called. I trust nobody with my kids now. But I trust my kids to be loud about everything too. Some of my favorite memories were sleepovers where we watched horror movies and played hide and seek ball tag in the dark. The seeker chucking tennis balls at everyone after they hid and running when spotted. Some people don't want to risk their kids getting molested. People are very vigilant for sexual abuse. Good in general, but some people become too paranoid. I'm 29. When I was little, I had friends who weren't allowed to do sleepovers. And a couple who were not allowed to attend sleepovers but were allowed to host the sleepover at their own house. I don't think it's new to be anti-sleepover. Though maybe it is more common. Gen X would laugh but no one would notice. Sir, I have 2 kids. My daughter is 20. My son is 11, was a teen mom and waited to have more kids. Plus fertility issues. When my daughter was little, she trended had sleepovers all the time. Like every weekend and all through the summer. My son, however, has been on had maybe 5 sleepovers all of his life. And we have hosted all but one of them. No one else ever hosts sleepovers and it's so strange to me. IDK people are weird. But when I went to sleepovers we didn't have cell phones. Everyone has cell phones nowadays. If your kid was put into a position where they were not comfortable, you were a swipe and few taps away. I feel like that weird shit is way less likely to happen these days just because technology. But at the end of the day, it is your kid. I was sexually assaulted at 7 by my friend's father at a sleepover. Never told now. It's like playing Russian roulette. You never know if there's going to be the bad person at someone else's house. I was molested by a friend's older brother and then bullied to not tell. So it is possible that something like that could happen. Just make sure you really know the family. I spoke to a nurse in a pediatric hospital on holidays once. She said sleepovers are one of the main reasons kids come in from sexual assault. Other kids' fathers, siblings or teenage cousins also staying over. Not saying it's always men, but this is literally what she said. When my parents started allowing me to go to sleepovers, my mom had a very serious conversation with me about safety and that if anything ever happened that I needed to tell her. She brought up the conversation over the years to reinforce the message. Didn't stop anything bad from happening, and no, I did not tell her. But having this conversation can help some kids who would feel comfortable speaking up. I am so glad I got to have sleepovers and play outside. Being perpetually indoors with only your family sounds like a ticket to bring poorly socialized and your kids sneaking out constantly when they hit their teens. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my kids' safety. When I was in middle school, my friend's little sister went camping with her friend's family. They took a canoe into a very dangerous river that not professionals would go into. And their canoe tipped over. My friend's little sister was the only one that didn't make it. I think the guy responsible was looking out for kids first. They didn't find the body till a month after, and I think the guy was charged with child endangerment. Something didn't happen recently. Something happened during a sleepover to these women when they were kids. Same as me. Something happened to me as a child during a sleepover. This is why we don't trust other people around our own. Know better. Personally know better. I'm 26 and never was allowed to go to sleepovers growing up because my mom specifically. It was always a issue, a part of the reason why I didn't have any close friends growing up. I only had school friends. When I did turn 18 I was a loose cannon and uncontrollably never home. Haven't talked to my parents in about 3 years or so. Haven't been happier.